Greetings, sunshines and sunnies. It is I, Queen J Lotus King Sunkiss, coming at y'all right quick, right fast, maybe. For messages from the full moon in Leo for Sagittarius and Aries. So this is, the fire signs. However, I've already done a separate video for the Leos since it's the full moon in Leo. So this particular fire sign video is only concerning Sagittarius and Aries. Now, we got two groups here. Both groups are covering Sagittarius and Aries. All right. So you pick your pile. You can pick it based on the timestamps, so I'm gonna try my best to put in the comments and or the description box and the time limit on 100. But you can also choose based on the intro cards that you'll see at the top. Like over to the left for group one, Sagittarius and Aries, we have the High Priest and or High Priestess. That is sideways with the head to the left. With the head to the right. Then over to the right, we have group two of the Sagittarius and Aries with the Forgiveness card with the head to the left as it is sideways. Mm-hmm. Once again, these are the messages from the full moon in Leo for Sagittarius and Aries. And it is a pick a card. So you may resonate with both, or you may resonate with only one or the other, honey. Whichever floats your boat. All right? Now, that said, you can choose any way that you want to choose your group. All the while, I am going to read off the intro cards as a way to kind of assist in y'all's choice making. So for group one, like I said, y'all got the High Priest or Priestess sideways with the head to the right. And what I pick up for people who may resonate with group one, very strongly intuitive, however, very highly sleep on yourself. And I'm hearing egotistical for some of you. It's coming from a place of ego. For some of you, that may be in the sense of vanity. And for a lot of you, is giving that you may have the gift of receiving past life visions. This can be intuitively breaking down and getting prophetic messages from memories, past memories, your past experiences, as well as being able to pick up and channel on past lives, past lifetimes, your own and others. Okay. And a way that is coming up that you all, I'm picking up like third eye blockage, pineal gland calcification, a pattern of friendships shattering suddenly, and you're not understanding why. You're trying to come to an understanding why, and or evading the understanding why. I'm picking up very avoidant energy, and a large part of this is trying to avoid memories for the sake of trying to avoid the sensation of fear and trying to avoid facing pain. But this is blocking you all's intuition and has you all functioning in a sense of false positivity. So you may have a lot of startup ideas, startup relationships, startup friendships, and even some that may have been very deep, but for some reason didn't last the way that you expected, and or as long as it could have, and or as good as it could have. It's like a struggle for depth here. Again, for group two, y'all have forgiveness sideways with the head to the left. So it's giving 50-50 here. On one side, the people that may resonate with group two, you're struggling to forgive people. And on the other side, you're having a hard time processing being forgiven and or facing the fact that you need to ask for forgiveness or that you are in need of forgiveness. And that's why the head is to the left. There is a lot of pessimistic energy here, lack mentality going on here, feeling taken from, and also some parasitic energy. I'm gonna say it straight up. It's some people in really both groups, but it's coming up in this group specifically. It's some people. It just came up. They have delusions of grandeur. Um, you think that you think that people should be asking you for forgiveness or that other people are to blame when really it's you. So Tisk. And on another hand, that's coming up here is someone or some people trying to forgive, thinking that they are on the right track with forgiveness, but it's not coming from a place that is making it mutually beneficial, let alone beneficial for you. And all of that'll be made more sense of as we get through the reading, but that was just a little bit from the intro symbolism cards there. So take the meat, spit out the bone. I hope that assisted you all in choosing your pal. And without further ado, we're going to go ahead and get into the specificities of group one. Greetings, sunshines and sunnies, Sagittarius and Aries of Collective One. And y'all's messages from this full moon in Leo, we are kicking it off with the Emperor in reverse. And the puppet card now is definitely giving real big business with the Emperor card coming out, okay? As the Emperor is often represented, not often, the Emperor is a representative of Aries. And then Aries is a ram, which is a sheep. There's also a sheep on the card, on the imagery of the card, specifically in this Sun and Moon tarot deck. So, being the fact that this card came out in reverse, it is further reaffirming and confirming a lot of the messages that came out about the intro symbolism card. That was the high priest and or priestess. That was sideways. And specifically the messages that had to do with there being like blockages in the third eye. And I'm also hearing blockages in the crown at this point, especially, of course, with the Emperor being here in reverse. The Emperor and Empress, they are royalty of royalty. They don't just rule over kingdoms, they rule over empires, which is a collective of kingdoms. So they are kings of kings, they are queens of queens. And this card coming out in reverse, amongst the other things going on, is definitely giving, once again, very egotistical, ego driven energy going on here. I just also heard spite. Okay. The anger is not divinely directed right about now. So, what it's directing us to is, and particularly, let's acknowledge the puppet card, right? Specifically, the number that is on the puppet card, which is the number 42. Specifically, yes, I'm using that word again. Putting the four and the two together and you get six. Six is a number of reflection and recognition as well as support. So what's coming up here is that you all are missing self-support, self-recognition, self-reflection. And again, this correlates with the intro symbolism messages from that past life oracle card that was the high priest and high priestess, and how I was talking about your memories and past experiences and the past life visions that you are able to receive, playing a huge role in your wisdom, in your sense of discernment, in your psychic abilities, if you will, in your sense of power and your sense of identity. So all that said is taking us back to childhood experiences where you felt like your power was taken away, and or this doesn't have to be childhood, it can be also young adulthood. So like 18 to 22 type shit. Not to say that 20s and 30s beyond that is not young, we're just picking up a particular time span. So it's like childhood to the age of 22, significant traumatic events that play a large role in making you feel like your power or your sense of control was taken away, or like your dignity was compromised. um Also picking up like a lot of shame, humiliation, embarrassment, disgust type energy here. So traumatic events that evoked those types of feelings surrounding the experience and or the experience straight up. All of that is coming up because in in y'all trying to move beyond that, trying to heal from it, seek healing from it, and or just trying to I'm just gonna say it straight up. Spirit is saying that you all have been thinking that you've been just moving on or you've been on a healing journey and this and that. And it's not to say that you haven't, but the issue is there's a false sense of healing that's going on, whereas y'all have actually just been recreating the trauma for the most part. And each time you recreate this trauma, you have more and more moments where you feel more powerful than before, more in control than before. You feel more proud of yourself in the way that you've handled it. But there's something haunting. I'm picking up the song Haunted by Beyonce, and it's some part of you, this trauma from that age range that came up is still tugging and pulling and haunting and weighing and riding your back, and it's just getting bigger and bigger and more painful and more unable to be ignored. And it's delusion. So y'all been caught up in a cognitive dissonance cycle of like delusion because you've been thinking that. And so I'm gonna say a part of what's coming straight up here. Um, this example may not be exact for all of you, but it's something going on in your life and your functionality and the way that you handle your relationships, even if it's just your relationship with yourself, that is reminiscent of BDSM and or S&M, particularly, and this has been coming up in like different instances. Um, but just hold it thought. So Spirit is saying this thing about using BDSM and or S&M, which, in case you don't know, is using basically violent sex practices in simple terms to heal from sexual trauma. Okay, and so Spirit is saying it's not that this type of practice can't get you anywhere, but it's a scenic route and it's a very, very risky route back to where you started. And when you get back to where you started to officially germinate, which is, officially completely uproot whatever that trauma is, you're going to find that you stacked so much more of that same trauma. You've recreated and recreated and recreated and recreated. You've cloned the trauma. You've doppelganged the trauma so much that by the time you get face first to whatever it is that you're trying to work out, run from, combat, dictate in this way, it's going to be so huge. And Spirit is saying you need to stop while you're ahead. So speaking more direct to the situation, Spirit is saying that if you are and or have been engaging in BDSM, S&M, and or some specific form or type, some toxic dynamic of polygamy and or polyamory, there's going to be a tower moment soon. And I'm seeing the Seven of Swords in my mind's eye as that comes up. There's going to be a tower moment soon that makes it very clear to you how wrong of a path you're on and how the methods of healing that you're using is like, think of it like medicine. You're taking this medicine, if you will, to heal this wound, this pain. But the medicine is just making you feel good for a moment while it's actually worsening your situation. And for some of you, this is coming up in a way where out the frying pan into the fire type of relationship, moving and shaking, where you got out of one toxic relationship and you moved on to another relationship that is seemingly better than the last, but has a lot of similarities. And again, it's giving a tower moment. It's coming up that's going to make you realize the situations aren't very different and or aren't different at all. And it's again further facilitating a cognitive dissonance, where you're about to be slammed into reality because in efforts to do what you think is heal and move on, again, you've actually been recreating trauma and you've actually been running away from reality. And healing cannot take place until and unless you face the reality of the pain that has been caused to you and the pain that you made yourself a slave to one way or another. Because as we get specifically into the puppet card, this is giving, there are people around you that recognize you giving your power away, constantly recreating these traumas over and over again, and or just constantly throwing yourself into different activities and relationships and this and that. to run away from the reality of what you've experienced to try to get what you feel like is power back, get what you feel like is a sense of control back, and a sense of confidence. I'm also hearing, but there's hubris being brewing here. And again, that hubris is also existing in these certain people that have been around you that recognize this and they're taking advantage of you. They're puppeteering you. They are filling you up with these things. So, for instance, using the BDSM example again, they're letting you be the dom in these situations. They're letting you do the whipping. They're letting you do the bending. They're letting you run the show in these sessions. But in regular life, they're blurring the lines and they're zapping the power from you. And they're getting you so high off the power that you feel when you're in the dominant position during those sexual sessions and such, that in real time, when they're fucking over you and they're taking advantage of you, you don't even realize it. Because some part of you is like making excuses and also reasoning it from like, oh, in the sessions they let me be dominant, so there's no way that they're taking advantage of me in real time. But there's another side of this as well, where some of you are more of the submissive in these sessions, and it's just normalized to you to be treated a certain way. But you're not clocking that if someone likes to hurt you in sex, they like to hurt you. If someone is getting pleasure from hurting you in sex, that means they get pleasure from hurting you. If someone gets pleasure from being harmed during sex, then it is very likely that in real time, they are going to do things to provoke you to harm them, be it mindfully or mindlessly. And this is not to like demonize anyone or anything. This is getting to the reality of what is. And this has a lot to do with y'all's reading and y'all's messages from the full moon in Leo. The activity of this full moon in Leo is going to be slapping y'all in the face with reality. It's going to be dragging you back to reality. And again, tower moments, I'm picking up coming through, making you realize the different meanings of as above, so below, which is like in another sense, what you do in one space, you do elsewhere, which is like what was just said in the message. If someone likes harming you during sex, that means they like harming you, period. They get pleasure from harming you during sex. They get pleasure from harming you. If someone likes to be harmed by you during sex, they are going to do things in real time to be harmed by you. And so it's bringing y'all to a reality to understand not just what things can represent, but also just what they are. Like some things ebb and flow. Some things are case by case, and some things just is what it is. Some things just are what they are. Some people just are who they are, and they don't want to change. They want to be accepted, or they don't want to change. They don't want to face reality. They want to stay in la la land of the delusion of power that they found because they find it easier than facing the pain. They're afraid to face the pain of what they have experienced because they are afraid of what it means about their identity. They're also afraid of what other people will think it means about their identity, not realizing that nothing makes you look more foolish than fooling the fuck out of yourself, thinking that you're hiding it from other people. And this is also how y'all are becoming and or have become slaves and or puppets to ego, vanity, other people's egos, other people's vanity, other people's paths, other people's expectations of you, other people's plans for you. And it's because your third eye has been disarmed. Your third eye, your crown has been disarmed not only by the traumatic experience, but how you've chosen to respond to the experience by running from the reality of the situation, by evading and avoiding the memories, because that is blocking you from being able to pick up on the wisdom and the divine psychic messages that will help you better discern and pick up when you're in dangerous situations, when you're around people who really don't mean you any harm, when you have opportunities to leave and get out while you're ahead instead of staying in a situation until it gets so fucking deep that it's almost too late for you to get out. And if you do get out, you have gotten so torn up and ragged and damn near lost limbs and all some other shit. And trying to prove that you can run 100 miles per hour with a broke leg instead of stopping and healing the broke leg. You're not realizing how much more impressive it is to actually stop and heal and truly recover from the broke leg and then come back even better than you were before. And to be, more clear about certain things that can help you all snap back into reality, journaling about the things that you've experienced, meditating, and allowing yourself to reflect and remember in detail. Practice that as many times as you need to, talking to people about it thoroughly in detail. If you do have someone to talk to about it, if you have access to be able to get a therapist or something of the sort, do so. If you have the ability to get readings, do so. Of course, protect yourself at all times. Okay, using your sense of discernment. So of course it's gonna have to start with self, in which y'all having that high priest, high priestess card is giving that y'all are self healers. Doesn't mean that you can't be healed by other people or things, but y'all are self healers. And this is a part of why y'all have been so like, I gotta go, I gotta get it, I gotta do this for myself, I gotta da 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 da. But you're not realizing you're being ego driven with it as opposed to divinely guided in it. And this avoiding of unpacking the pain is not doing what you think it is. It's actually keeping you from being able to remember the signs that your intuition that even is resonated in your body, even the signs and signals in your body. Like me, for instance, I can tell a person is off if they are literally making me nauseous. If literally the sound of their voice is disgusting me. Their presence is making my stomach turn. That's how I know they ain't shit, because my body will just tell me. I ain't gotta have no conversation. I ain't gotta go through the motions. I ain't even gotta, it could just be high and by just that quick, because I recognize that my stomach will literally do backflips and try to run out of my body if I'm around someone or something at this point that is not kosher. And that's the type of intuitive knowing that y'all are keeping yourselves from knowing, gaining, having, and using, because y'all won't just stop. And Spirit is honestly saying be by yourself. There are some people in here that serially hop through relationships and situationships and fuck buddies and this and that. You don't ever give yourself time to just be. Even if you are, and this is not say that if you're in a relationship and it's good and, it's no reason to leave or whatever, but there's still, boundaries, space. You're constantly trying to keep yourself on the go to prove to someone or something or some people or your own ego that you can run 100 miles per hour with a broke leg. And what about healing yourself? What about truly being happy and finding out what that is for you? And healing your nervous system and laughing and enjoying yourself, like literally learning what it is to enjoy yourself and reclaiming your power in a real way through yourself. And it's very likely that as you allow yourself to reminisce and recollect very intentionally and divinely and pray for your emotions to be divinely directed, you'll find that perhaps in whatever that root trauma is, it's not even your fault. And that power wasn't truly taken away from you. You were convinced to redirect it for the sake of survival. And so, in facing that reality, you can take back your power in the way of making a choice to not be a slave to the trauma of the person that hurt you the first time. Because that's what ends up happening when you end up in these elongated cycles of living a lifestyle of trauma responding. You've become a slave to somebody else's trauma. You've become a slave to someone else's demons. And it's become a spiritually transmitted disease. And it's parasitic. And like mind control parasites, the parasites will be telling you, keep doing what the trauma trained you to do. Keep doing what the trauma trained you to like. Keep doing what the trauma trained you to love. When in actuality, you're being puppeteered by someone else's demons. For we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but with the principalities of good and evil. So, in a nutshell, group one of Sagittarius and Aries, y'all's messages from the full moon in Leo have the bulk to do with facing reality, doing an abundance of reflection and reminiscing intentionally for the sake of remembering who you are and where you come from, and essentially also where you're supposed to be, learning how your memories are attached to your psychic abilities, your gifts, your intuition, your third eye, and your crown, as well as your solar plexus, I'm picking up as well. And so, all of that leading up to true healing and true freedom for you all, and the authenticity of gaining y'all's power back. Okay, power overall is it also includes your gifts and also how to properly use your gifts without being a slave to them, let alone without abusing the power of your gifts. Okay, trying to see if there's anything else coming up here. Oh yes, tower moments. Likely coming up for some of you, all of you, a good bulk of you. That is going to inevitably drag you back to reality. I'm hearing honestly, what is for y'all, it's gonna be for y'all. All the while, y'all are having to use y'all's free will because you have a higher purpose. It is certain things that other people seemingly are able to do in quote unquote peace that you aren't. Like, for instance, let's say you go in the store with some people and everybody steal, but you the one that get caught. Everybody else end up getting away with it. And that's like the type of pattern that you have. Like, everybody else can get away with doing something, quote unquote, but you the one that get caught straight up with the spotlight on the news. And this is because you all have a higher purpose. So if you don't mind, body, and soulfully choose that higher purpose and commit to it, your pitfalls, the misery that you will feel from a dream deferred, will be 10 times worse than quite a few other people who have a lesser purpose. And that's a part of the reality that you all are struggling to face, because it is a lot of pressure and you're not trusting yourself to be able to meet the requirements. But Spirit is saying that, yep, y'all are being led to separate your relationship with God from your relationship with man, so that you can separate what is God's fault and what is other humans' fault, as well as what is your fault. And all of that in responsibility and accountability, and how that applies and transfers into what is power. And I believe it's about that time. Well, I remind y'all, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man a fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. Y'all go fishing, baby. And with all that being said, y'all, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this cow dry. And I am thoroughly appreciative of the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe, so that you'll be one of the first to be back with these queenly qualities for the next time. And be sure to bless that comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in always light, love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah. Greetings, sunshines and sunnies of group 2 of my Sagittarius and Aries. Honey, ain't gonna waste no time. Gonna go ahead and get right into the specificities of these cards. And again, these are y'all's messages from this full moon in Leo. So y'all had the forgiveness card that was sideways with the head to the left. So following its lead, y'all have Three of Wands, aka Virtue in its Sun and Moon Tarot deck, and Happy Endings in reverse from the Love and Money deck. And so we're dealing with multiplicatives of 3 here, okay? 3 of Wands. And on the Happy Endings card, we have the number 6 and the number 9. 69. The jokes write themselves. And please believe, God is funny. But y'all, so with these fruitful multiplicatives going on here, the number 3 is a number of fruitful multiplicatives. It's the number of alchemy. So with the 3 being the number of creative alchemy, even as it concerns creating children, creating a legacy, even, whether that involves actual children that are people, or children that are projects, businesses, artworks, productions, things of that nature. It can also be intangible as well, and like energy transfers. So yeah, feelings and such, sensations and transferences of energy that go miles of ways type shit. So for instance, with that, if you go on vacation and you meet this random person that you never see again in your life, but they never forget you, and they take the energy that you transferred to them with them through every instant in their life, and you may do the same in return. And that's what makes it fruitful and multiplicative, excuse me. That's what makes it fruitful and multiplicative, especially if it is mutual, especially if both of y'all are doing that same thing for and from and with each other. Now, my tongue was getting crossed up because I was channeling this substitute teacher that I used to have. His name was Mr. Alabala. And he had a series of rules, but one of his rules was everybody say yes ma'am and no ma'am, even to each other, like even us as kids, teenagers, preteens, because I had him as a substitute in both middle school and in high school. And consistently one of his rules was everybody say yes ma'am and no ma'am, even to each other. And he would follow up with that, and he would say, it's because everyone will know where you come from, who you have crossed, the leaders that you have had, the influential, fruitful, and multiplicative people that you have had in your life, in your village at some point. Because if you practice this here, you will practice it when you go to the bus stop, to the grocery store, to wherever it is you go in life, and have this understanding, this virtue, value, moral functionality of showing just due respect to everyone, regardless of their title, their age, their identity, how they look, etc., etc. So, all that being said, brings us back perfectly to this Three of Wands card, which is also known as the Virtue card. It shows up with the label of virtue in several decks. And so that's a consistency that reigns true about the Three of Wands card. And if you notice in this particular imagery of this particular card in this particular deck, the girl in the card is juggling the wands. And so this card calls us to reevaluate, and that's where we get into the multiplicative of 3, which is the number 6, which represents reevaluation. So it calls us to reevaluate by the power of 3 times 3. Make them see. Okay, somebody needs to watch The Craft. Somebody needs to watch The Craft. So yeah, y'all being called to reevaluate your sense of virtue, your sense of values, your sense of morals, because there is something, and it could be attached to trauma, it could be attached to betrayals and heartbreak from the village that you were born into. So there's a war of virtues. Whereas this is what Spirit is saying. The collective of you all were born with a great divine intuitive sense of virtues. But the tricky part of it all, which is very much so fiery energy, it's the shadow of fiery energy. Specifically, the shadow of Leo is the trickster. So that's important to understand when we're dealing with the full moon specifically in Leo, because Leo is ruled by the sun. But also peep that this year, the full moon in Leo, which is the opposite in Cancer, is ruled by the moon. Specifically, Leos and Cancers have quite a bit in common, but tend to bump heads a lot. Okay? Much like the moon and the sun work together inevitably, but tend to have conflicts of interest. The sun is severely hot, the moon is severely cold, but the moon needs the sun. And essentially, the sun needs the moon, because without the moon, the earth would overheat, and without the sun, the earth would overly frost. And that's how Leos and Cancers tend to be as well, whether together or in a group, working together one way or another, or just like Leos and Cancers, and or that energy existing in the world at all, is for a purpose. I also think about the animals that they represent. Leo is lion, which is an apex predator, which means that it is a top predator. Nothing preys on a lion. Okay, but Cancer is straight up prey. Some of everything preys on the crab. That's why crabs, and in correlation to the nature of Cancers, essentially, quote unquote, live in fear, if you will. Okay, so that's not an insult. If someone's a Cancer and you're here for one of your other strong placements that may be Sagittarius or Aries, Cancers have a lot to do with dabbling in fears, learning how to transmute and divinely direct the frequency of fear. So don't take that as an insult, because it doesn't have to be an insult unless you allow it to be. Unless you allow yourself to be a slave to fear, then that's where, you'll be insulting yourself in that way. Okay, right? And then the juxtaposition to that is, again, Leo, the lion, where Leo tends to be on the frequency of bravery, courage, which is often seen as fearlessness. However, courage cannot exist without fear because courage is bravery even in the face of fear. So again, that's where you can see how Leo and Cancer are kind of sort of two sides of the same coin, but not necessarily. They are like very much so drastic opposites that have to function together, that have to juggle together one way or another. It's like a necessary chaos for the sake of peace. Okay. And so that's a concept. Okay. We finna park the car in the yard. Okay. We had to cruise away from here real quick. All right. And you know that's a song channeling. If you've been here for a good little minute, you know that's a song channeling. Okay. Cruising, be it if you listen to The Virgin by Smokey Robinson or by D'Angelo, whichever one resonates with you, flow where you know. All right. Go where you flow. Flow as you go, goddamn. If you can't go to Villa No Chase, where can you go, goddamn? So yes, honey. All that being said, there's some specificity coming up here, whereas the full moon in Leo is calling y'all to recognize where there may be some drastic opposites to you. There are some lessons, some messages, some visions that you have been needing to take in, see, listen to, but you have been rejecting it. You've been reluctant to it. You've been fighting it. You've been shutting down from it because it's not coming from the sources that you would prefer. So I'm hearing y'all are having to learn not to shoot the messenger. Y'all are having to learn to be more accepting, because what y'all are fixing to have to realize is that a lot of the people that you've been rejecting are more alike you than you are willing to admit, and this is facilitating a frequency of self-hate. So it's finna smack you in the face with a harsh reality that you've been performing for people who hate you and you haven't realized it, because your sense of a love language has been corrupted severely and you haven't realized it. Some of you may have a strong Virgo Venus, Virgo Mercury, Virgo 12th house, and or Virgo and Pluto. That's what's coming up here, because it's like, and that goes back to what Spirit was saying about y'all being born with a great sense of virtues, values, and morals in a divine sense naturally, but being born into a village that has a corrupt sense of values and a corrupt sense of love, a corrupt sense of respect, a corrupt sense of power. And I'm hearing that this has a lot to do with past life regression. It's having a lot to do with past life situations, which makes sense because the past life oracle so happened to be the intro cards. Nothing's a coincidence. And mind you, I didn't shuffle the deck for those cards. They just literally fell out right on top of the two piles, exactly like that when I grabbed the deck. Like I was called to use those cards as the intro symbols, to help for, y'all to pick the cards. And when I picked up the deck, those are the ones that fell out and they fell right into place. So once again, nothing's a coincidence, and that certainly is not a coincidence, especially being the past life energy that has come up in both of the groups so strong, but in kind of different ways. So with y'all, in contrast to the first group, whereas they have like some sort of, and they have some sort of spiritual gift dealing with past life visions and picking up on the past life and sensing the past life, much like myself. I have those abilities as well, specifying that that gift is a spectrum, so it may not show up the same for everybody else. That's why I like had a bit of pause as I was going to say what I was going to say. But anywho, for y'all's group specifically, y'all, so trigger warning, trigger warning, trigger warning. There's a good bit of the collective here that committed suicide in a past life. And a major part of your purpose in this life is to make peace with what contributed to your self destruction in the past life or past lives where that was your spirit's experience. Okay. So you could have been on one or either side where you dealt with a village that was totally, morally corrupt, spiritually corrupt, and all of that good shit, and or you were on the side of being a part of the village or the leader of the village that was spiritually corrupt and or morally corrupt. And one way or another, it's a part of your karmic retribution in this lifetime to rectify, repent, and make peace with those concepts in this life. Whew. which makes sense why y'all got the happy endings card in reverse. So let's talk about that real quick. You wanted a fairy tale, but life has shown its imperfections, and our relationship isn't the perfect story, but it's real. Mm. So, what I'm hearing with that and seeing with that is that a good bit of you is having to do with, similar to the first group, is having to do with trauma responses, but in a different way. So, for this group, the trauma response has to do with trying so hard not to recreate traumatic experiences that you end up facilitating the frequency of delusion by micromanaging narratives. So this is something that is paralleling the past lives into this lifetime for y'all. At least a good bit of y'all experiences in this lifetime, you've either dealt with a hell of a lot of people who, for instance, they gaslight, but it's specifically where they will do something blatantly disrespectful or out the way, outside of themselves, in people's faces. And then when people simply say what they see, they will respond, "Why are you trying to make me look bad? Why are you trying to embarrass me? Why are you saying this? You're just trying to make me feel bad. You're just trying to play victim. You're just trying to make them think I'm a monster." That's someone who has child delusions of grandeur, first of all. But that is someone who is so lost in the sauce of a trauma response that they have an attachment, an excessive attachment to controlling the narrative. And they want to be the rabbit that holds the gun, but they don't want to claim that title. They still want to be the victim. And or they still want to be seen as the angel. They still want to be halo affected. They want to raise hell blatantly in people's faces and still have people respond in the way that says they are Jesus Christ. They are perfect. Emmanuel is what we call them. They are awesome. They can move mountains. Okay, keep you in the valley, hide you from the rain. Whole time they are raining fire on everybody's fucking parade. Test, okay? This type of thing can transmit spiritually transmitted diseases of the sort. You have someone, invalidate your experiences that many times, gaslight you in such a way, it can then evoke that spirit out of you to feel a need to obsess over imagery, the narrative, what people think, how people feel about you, because you're in such a constant defense mode, a constant trauma response of trying to prove who you are and trying to prove your truth and prove your experience. And the whole time, you're becoming a slave to the chain of fools. That's the song started channeling through. Chain of fools. Okay, you getting linked up in a chain of fools, chasing waterfalls, chasing waterfalls, and trying to control narratives that don't fucking matter and facilitating the frequency of delusion. Okay, which deals in having a hard time with facing reality, which is a consistency amongst both groups, which is very interesting, but it's just hitting in different ways when it comes to both groups. And so the forgiveness frequency is coming in, whereas this full moon in Leo is calling y'all to sift through what you feel versus what's real. And this is a process, so this is going to require y'all to be, and it is requiring y'all to be very patient with yourselves and very compassionate with yourselves as well. Because for a lot of you, there are a lot of people that you're needing to forgive internally, not allow them back access to you, but you're needing to forgive the situation to set yourself free. And then there are other situations where you're waiting for forgiveness and you're pouting and you stomping your foot and rolling your eyes and you're waiting for apologies that honestly you don't deserve. Because this is what Spirit is saying. Y'all have gotten so caught up in being a slave to defense, being a slave to reacting and responding to opposition, people coming for you. And this is not to say that they are right at all. This is about y'all taking y'all's power back over self-governing. Because again, Y'all have gotten so attached to controlling the narrative and so lost in the sauce in this chain of foolery that y'all have not realized there are certain people that you had knee-jerk reactions to off of pure paranoia, and you unjustly, quote unquote, defended yourself. You unjustly lashed out. You unjustly abandoned them. You unjustly characterized them, mischaracterize them as someone and something that they are not, based on your fears and based on you fighting someone who is not even in your life anymore, and or fighting someone who they are not. You ended up bleeding on people who didn't cut you and becoming what you despise by playing victim as a result of shit that you caused that was unnecessary. Now, I can't say the specificity of what each situation is, of course. It's a huge collective, and this is just what Spirit is giving me to say to y'all. But it makes sense at the other end of the energy that was coming out, from the intro, is it concerned the messages from the forgiveness card that was like, some of y'all are actually needing to apologize yourselves. And it's going back to that delusions of grandeur. It's given that a lot of y'all have gotten arrogant from being vindicated in certain things. You will allow certain vindications and certain realizations that you were right turn you into a monster, a dictator in certain ways. Again, cause you to become what you despise, where you're villainizing and demonizing people off rip or off simple human flaws. And you don't realize some of these people were supposed to be a part of your soul village. Some of these people were sent by God, by the universe, to help you, and or for you to create more good karma for yourself. But you couldn't let the hurt go. You couldn't let the old shit go. You couldn't find forgiveness in your heart enough to not just demonize every single person for every little thing. And that's another reason why Spirit is saying that this process of filtering out what you feel, which is, can still have validity to it, even if it's not in coherence with what's real. Okay. And finding that balance and making peace with it within yourself. Because these moments of bleeding on people who didn't cut you, and then having to realize the guilt that is rightfully yours from that situation, and having to take accountability, and essentially that being how, a large part of how you get your power back, by taking accountability for your own trespasses, you know, and gaining a sense of humility from that. It's a part of the purpose, and it's a part of the past life karmic retribution. And you play your cards right and you come at it pure heartedly, you can have it all. You can have the happy endings. But Spirit is not about to allow you to weaponize your victimhood over their other chosen ones, and over people that they actually put in position to love you and hold you and care for you and need you. How does a song go? Tyler Perry. Ain't it funny how life goes around? It's channeling through, honey. Because Spirit it has either already slapped y'all in the face, or they're about to slap you in the face, or they're about to slap you in the face even harder than before, to make you realize, don't ever think it can't be you one way or another. Don't ever think that you've gotten to a position where you don't have to check yourself before you wreck yourself. Because a broken clock is right twice a day, and a brand new clock can still glitch out, because everyone and everything in this earth realm is flawed. You can have somebody begging you for forgiveness today, rightfully so, and then you can be begging someone else for forgiveness the next day, even rightfully so. So being more humiliative with yourself will allow you to better discern who deserves your humility. And even in the face of those who do not deserve your humility, you still maintain that humility for and with yourself, as a way to not go to hell with other people. Just because they committed to going to hell and raising hell and all that shit doesn't mean that you have to. And with that being said, first of all, fire signs in general are the natural leaders of the zodiac. So we really cannot afford to be letting people dictate us, letting people puppeteer us, letting people get us lost in the sauce of being slaves to their chains of foolery. And they try it. They try it so hard and so bad, and they gon' try it. Which is why we have to learn how to be masters of war and peace. And being a master of war It's not the Knight of Wands energy in reverse, where anything that come at you, you just hairpin trigger back. You just hairpin trigger fire right back. That's not wise. As valid as the emotions, as valid as the feelings may be, to fire right back is not wise. It's not virtuous. Virtuosity has more to do than with respectability politics. It honestly has not a goddamn thing to do with respectability politics. It has to do with self-dignity and maintaining and committing to what you want for yourself. Not jumping into other people's narratives and storybooks that they create for you. You take the pen and you write it. And if they cause some fucking errors and typos and call themselves trying to autocorrect, you snatch the pen back and rewrite it. You create a new pen and rewrite it. Because you are the beacon of alchemy, like fire. Hey now, okay? Step your cookies up before they crumble. Don't be like the Cardinals and go fumble. Okay, and don't be like that Sagittarius and go fumble your whole damn legacy off some bullshit. Okay? And again, from the past life things, that's a part of the karmic retribution here for y'all to relearn the true meanings of being a leader, because it's given that y'all are supposed to be meant for leadership, but you keep getting lost in the sauce of following. And in some cases, not even following, just getting tugged and pulled on a string because you letting your ego take the wheel. And it's not doing you a service. It has not been doing you a service. And think about the position of 69, right? It's a mutual servicing. House and ever to a degree. It's also limiting. Because, and it's nothing wrong with doing the position, but if you stay there, like, for instance, if you want kids, if you want a legacy that kids represent, you can't just spend all your time doing 69 bars. You can't conceive like that. Okay? So it's about being more mindful and more intentional about the mutual exchanges you're engaging in. Constantly engaging in mutual exchanges of low vibration. Constantly engaging in mutual exchanges of low vibrational energy is not fruitful. It's multiplicative, but it ain't fruitful. It multiplies and recreates trauma over and over and over and over and over again, which allows the rebel oracle message to channel through. If you don't like where you are, stop taking yourself there. Stop engaging in mutual exchanges of nothingness. Stop engaging in mutual exchanges of bullshit. Stop engaging in mutual exchanges of low vibrational energy. And I believe it's about that time where I remind y'all, you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. You teach a man a fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. Y'all go fishing, baby. And with all that being said, child, if I do say so myself, honey, I have milked this cow dry. And I am thoroughly appreciative for the exchange of vibes. And if you're feeling synchronized, please do me a divine design and like, share, and subscribe so that you can be one of the first to be back through these queenly quotas for the next time. And be sure to bless that comment section with your questions and conversations. And as always, I bid you in all ways like love, healing, and liberation. Emphasis on liberation. Mwah.